You're done here, Tasha. Kendra's words echoed through the cold, sleek boardroom, her voice firm and devoid of sympathy. She didn't even look up as she spoke, eyes glued to her tablet. The board members around the table shifted uneasily in their seats, casting furtive glances at me. But Kendra? She was practically glowing with satisfaction, as if she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. I clenched my jaw, fighting the rush of fury threatening to break free. That's it. I managed, keeping my voice steady, though the storm inside me raged. Yes, that's it, Kendra responded, turning a page on her tablet, dismissing me with ease. Clean out your desk by tomorrow. I stood, my grip tightening on my notepad. Every ounce of my pride was at stake now. I nodded stiffly to the others, not daring to let them see the cracks forming in my composure, and walked out of the room with my head high. The door clicked shut behind me, a small sound that carried the weight of everything I had just lost. My name is Tasha Moore. For the last decade, I'd been the driving force behind everything that made our company, Reed Enterprises, a powerhouse. Until today. Please like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the hum of the building wash over me. The taste of betrayal was bitter, like rust on the tongue. I could still hear Kendra's voice in my head, the cold finality of her words. My sister, my flesh and blood, the one who had always been the golden child, the one who did everything by the book, played every card with perfect timing. Can you believe this? I muttered to myself as I stepped into my office, the one I'd earned, the one I'd built from scratch. My assistant, Cheryl, looked up at me, her face already filled with concern. Tasha, what happened? She asked, her voice shaky, as if she already knew the answer. Kendra just fired me. Effective immediately. Tomorrow I'm out. Cheryl's eyes widened in shock. She can't do that. You're the reason this company exists. I smiled faintly, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. Oh, she can? She did. I sank into my chair, taking in a deep breath, allowing myself a moment of shock. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The ink on my resignation was barely dry, and already, the gears in my mind began turning. I had a plan. One that Kendra would never see coming. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a folder, thick with years of careful planning. Inside were contracts, corporate agreements, and papers that no one but me had ever taken the time to read. Kendra, so focused on her public persona and the boardroom drama, never bothered to pay attention to the structure I had set in place for exactly this kind of situation. Cheryl, I said, my voice low but steady, remember that consulting firm I set up 5 years ago? The one that technically handles all of our big client contracts. Her eyes lit up in realization. Your LLC, the one where you did all the work but kept it under the radar? Exactly, I replied. It's time to remind Kendra who built this company. Not her. Not Dad. Me. I pulled out the documents, my fingers tracing the edges of the paperwork. I'd set this up to protect myself from just this sort of political game. While Kendra had played her part, shaking hands and giving speeches, I'd been the one making the deals, forming the alliances, securing the contracts that made Reed Enterprises the powerhouse it had become. And now it was time to take it all back. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving something. To Kendra. To our father. To everyone who thought they could push me aside. For years, I had been the one in the shadows, the one making things happen behind closed doors. Kendra got all the attention, the praise, the awards. But when the numbers were crunched, when the clients were counted, I was the one who had done the heavy lifting. Cheryl glanced at me, uncertainty written on her face. But Kendra's going to fight you. She's got Dad on her side. I laughed softly. Dad's never understood business the way I do. He's too wrapped up in appearances, in legacy. Kendra's his perfect little princess, the one who follows all the rules. But I'm the one who actually gets it. She'll never see it coming. I stood up, moving toward the filing cabinet where I kept the legal papers. My plan was simple. I was going to leverage everything I had worked for, everything I had built, and turn it into something all my own. By the next morning, I was in full swing. My office was empty except for a few family photos and the remains of my once glorious career. I moved quickly, packing up what little I had left. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down to see a message from our largest client, Evergreen Logistics. "Where do we stand with a new point of contact?" the message read. I smiled. This was it. Kendra was already making waves, trying to tell her clients that she was the new boss. What she didn't realize was that she wasn't the one they had been working with. I dialed the number. "Good morning, Marcus. It's Tasha. How's everything?" His voice crackled through the line. "Tasha, I don't know what's going on, but I got an email from Kendra saying she's taking over as our point of contact. Is that true?" I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, I'm afraid Kendra's a bit out of the loop. The contract, Marcus, is with me. You signed with my LLC, not Reed Enterprises. I've been the one running the show." He paused, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. "So, what does this mean for our partnership?" "It means I'm still your point of contact. I've got everything covered, Marcus. You don't have to worry about a thing." By mid-morning, I had received calls from 3 more of our top clients. All of them had gotten the same message from Kendra, but none of them were interested in continuing under her leadership. They were mine. They had always been mine. Cheryl walked in just as I hung up with the last client. The words already spreading. "It's like you never left. People are backing you." I nodded, feeling the weight of what I had just accomplished. The pressure was mounting, but I thrived under it. This was my moment, and no one was going to take it from me. The sound of my phone ringing again broke my concentration. It was Kendra. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello, Kendra," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Where are the client files?" she demanded, the panic already starting to edge her tone. "And why is Marcus saying he won't work with us anymore?" I smiled to myself. "The files are exactly where they've always been. On the shared drive. You should check the contracts, Kendra. All of our major clients are contracted through my LLC. Reed Enterprises is just a fulfillment partner. Maybe you should take a look." Her silence was deafening, but I could practically feel the heat coming through the phone. "I'm not going to let you do this, Tasha," Kendra finally said, her voice shaky with frustration. I couldn't suppress a laugh. "You can't stop it. This was all set up years ago. You've been playing politics while I've been making the deals, Kendra. I'm just doing what I've always done." She wasn't done. "You've ruined everything. You've destroyed our family's legacy." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly. "I just made sure that I wasn't going to be sidelined. Not anymore." I hung up before she could say another word. But I knew she'd be back. She always came back. Cheryl knocked on the door before entering with a cardboard box. "I quit," she said with a grin. "I'm joining your team. Where do we start?" I couldn't help but smile. Looks like we've got a company to build. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and late-night strategy sessions. My clients, the ones who had trusted me, began to shift their operations toward my new company. The contracts were in place. The revenue was secure. But there was still so much to do. I made calls to suppliers, fulfillment centers, and even competitors, securing partnerships where I could. Every connection I had forged over the years, every alliance I had built, was now coming to my aid. I wasn't just building a business. I was crafting a brand. My brand. At night, my dining room table became a war room. Legal pads, laptops, coffee cups scattered across the surface as I worked late into the night. The plan was coming together, and it wasn't just about survival, it was about domination. By the time I was ready to face the board again, the foundation was in place. I had everything I needed to go head-to-head with Kendra and Reed Enterprises. And this time, there was no turning back. The board meeting came sooner than expected. I'd been notified that Kendra had called an emergency meeting to address the fallout from the client exodus. They were desperate, scrambling to figure out what had gone wrong. I received a message from Jordan, one of my former colleagues at Reed Enterprises. "They're panicking. The board's been going crazy trying to figure out how to stop this. You hiring?" I smiled to myself. "Tell them to bring me names. I've got competitive packages ready for anyone who's interested." Then, I turned my attention back to Kendra's message. An emergency board meeting, huh? I'd have my attorney attend. When Kendra called again, her tone was icy. This isn't over, Tasha. Oh, I know. I replied, my voice calm. But for now, I'm moving forward with VC Strategy Group. If the board wants answers, they'll have to ask me directly. She snapped, You're sabotaging the family business. No, I said firmly. I'm simply making sure I don't get burned in the process. The next morning, as the board meeting was about to begin, I sat at my desk, watching the sun filter through my office window. The weight of everything was starting to settle in. I had no idea where this would end, but I was more than ready for whatever Kendra threw at me next. My phone buzzed. It was from my father. We need to talk. I set the phone down, but my thoughts were already spinning. What could he possibly want now? I knew what he had to say would be important, but I wasn't ready to face him yet. Not until I'd solidified my position. For now, I needed to focus. Kendra's game was over. Mine was just beginning. By the time the board meeting ended, I'd received several updates from my attorney. Kendra's attempt to challenge the structure of my LLC had been shut down. The board members who had actually read the contracts backed me. They couldn't deny that the structure had been delivering results for years. Grace, my attorney, called me with the news. Kendra's upset, but the boards decided not to pursue any legal action. I exhaled a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. They still want to make an offer, though, don't they? Grace paused.
Yes.
They want to bring VC Strategy Group in as a permanent contractor. 5-year commitment. They want to legitimize everything you've done, but with better terms. I let out a low laugh. They fire me, then offer me a better deal. How typical. Well, it's a good offer, she said. 7 figures guaranteed. Tell them I'll review it, but we're moving forward with direct client relationships. That's non-negotiable.
Part 12.
The next few days were a whirlwind of negotiations, phone calls, and strategy meetings. Kendra's offer was generous, but I knew better than to settle for anything less than what I was worth. I reviewed the terms with Grace, making a few adjustments to ensure that my team, the people who had stuck with me through thick and thin, would benefit as much as possible. It wasn't just about the money, it was about power. The kind of power I had always deserved. Meanwhile, Kendra's silence was beginning to worry me. She hadn't reached out, hadn't tried to talk things through. It was uncharacteristic of her, and it made me uneasy. I've got a meeting with her tomorrow, I told Grace. Just the two of us. Do you want me there? She asked. No, I replied. Some things need to be said without lawyers. When I walked into the coffee shop to meet Kendra, she was already seated, her expression unreadable. It was a far cry from the usual tension between us. The years of sibling rivalry seemed to have evaporated in the face of this business war. She didn't look like a CEO. She looked like a woman who had lost everything. You look tired, she said, stirring her coffee, eyes never meeting mine. Building a company is exhausting, I replied. You'd know that if you'd ever done it. She didn't flinch. I've been thinking about why you set up that LLC, she said, her tone surprisingly calm. You never trusted us. Not me. Not Dad. Not the board. I set down my coffee. Trust is earned, Kendra. And you and Dad spent years overlooking me while giving you all the credit. What was I supposed to trust? Her eyes darkened. We're family, Tasha. You should have trusted that. I shook my head. Family businesses fail because people confuse loyalty with business sense. You were chosen because you were Dad's daughter, not because you were the best person for the job. Her face hardened. You're ruthless, Tasha. You always have been. I leaned back. I didn't burn anything down. You lit the match. I'm just making sure I don't get caught in the flames. We sat there in silence for a few moments, the weight of our words hanging in the air. What was left to say? Everything we had built, everything we had fought for, was now laid bare. There was no going back. Kendra sighed and leaned forward. So, what happens now? She asked, almost as if she were willing to concede defeat. I paused, considering. You've lost. The clients are with me. The team's with me. You've got your role, but that's all. Reed Enterprises is my company now. You wanted to be CEO, but you didn't understand what it really took. Kendra looked away, her lips tight. And you're just going to leave me to pick up the pieces? I'm not leaving you, I said softly. You've already done that to yourself. 3 months after Kendra fired me, I stood in the lobby of Kovner Defense, our newest and largest client. Their contract would push VC Strategy Group past $40 million in revenue, double what I had made at Reed Enterprises. Edward Hughes, their procurement director, met me with a handshake. Impressive operation you've built, Tasha. Not bad for someone who is just a logistics expert. I smiled, letting the compliment wash over me. It wasn't always this easy. He chuckled. And no family drama. That's a bonus. I couldn't help but agree. I had built something real. Something lasting. Later that day, I received a call from Jordan. The board accepted our counterproposal. We're now Reed's primary logistics partner for the next 3 years. My heart skipped a beat. I'd done it. I had turned the tables and Reed Enterprises was now completely dependent on me. But what struck me most was the look in Kendra's eyes when I walked into the office. She had lost. And this time, she wouldn't get back up. When I received the invitation for lunch from my father, I knew something big was coming. It had been 6 months since Kendra fired me. 6 months since I had walked away from Reed Enterprises and built VC Strategy Group from the ground up. He looked older than I remembered when I sat down at the restaurant, his face worn with the strain of running a company teetering on the edge. You look good, Tasha, he said, his voice sincere. Success suits you. Thanks, Dad, I replied, uncertain where this conversation would lead. He took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. More than one, actually. My eyebrows rose. What do you mean? I should have recognized your talents. Should have made you CEO when I stepped down. I was blinded by tradition. My heart ached, but I kept my expression neutral. I outmaneuvered all of you, didn't I? I said, my voice almost a whisper. Created my own safety net right under your noses. He nodded slowly. I'm impressed. But I'm not angry. Just conflicted. I should have seen it sooner. I nodded, feeling the sting of his words. Better late than never, I guess. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my father's words, his apology hanging between us. Maybe you're right, maybe there's a way to fix things, but it's not going to happen overnight. I can't just go back and pretend that Kendra hasn't already burned the bridges. He looked at me, his expression tinged with regret. What if the board wants you back? What if they make you CEO instead of Kendra? The idea of going back, taking that title, felt strange. The thought of working alongside Kendra again seemed impossible. But something inside me hesitated. Could I ever go back to that life? To the company that had been my entire world for so long? I don't know, Dad. Honestly, I don't know if I can work with Kendra again. She's made her choices and I've made mine. I said, my voice steady but uncertain. He nodded, as if understanding that some things couldn't be fixed. I just want you to know, I see what you've built. You've done more than I ever expected. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. That I was done fighting for his approval. This was my empire now. As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt the final weight of the conversation lift off my shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt entirely mine. I wasn't bound by family expectations anymore. I wasn't tied to Reed Enterprises. I was building something from the ground up, something that no one could take from me. VC Strategy Group was thriving, and I was finally the architect of my own success. My phone buzzed as I got into my car. It was Jordan. Great news, Tasha. Kovner Defense just signed a 3-year deal with us. They're bringing in more than we anticipated. The company's growth is on track. This is big. I smiled, feeling the satisfaction spread through me. That's what I like to hear, I said, watching the sun dip below the horizon as I drove toward our new headquarters. I'd built this empire through blood, sweat, and the harsh lessons of betrayal. But now, as I looked toward the future, I knew there was no going back. This was my victory. Thank you for watching. Please drop a comment, and subscribe for more stories like this.